It begins with a breath. Not a loud one, just the quiet rising of your chest, the soft fall that follows. You may not notice it, but your body does. In this simple rhythm, something ancient begins again. With each inhale, tiny signals move like whispers through the inner corridors of you. And at the center of it all, in the deep hush of your skull, there is a glow. Not of light exactly, but something brighter still. You do not need to see your brain to know it is there. You feel it in the way you remember a name without reaching for it, in the way your eyes close when they need to, in the way you begin to relax when you're safe, like now. Your brain is not just an organ. It is a lighthouse, quiet, constant, guiding you through the seas of waking and sleeping. And tonight, it flickers on like a soft star at dusk, ready to show you the shores within. Inside your head, billions of neurons like slender, living trees stand quietly. They stretch their branches out, rootless yet rooted, waiting for signals to spark. When you breathe in, oxygen feeds them. When you close your eyes, they rearrange their focus. They are always listening, always ready, always connected. And that connection, that's the spark. The very first time it happened, you were barely formed. Still floating in warm darkness, your cells gathered and decided, this one will be different. This one will think. The very first electrical pulse ran through your tiny neural tube like lightning through a new sky. That was your beginning. Now, years later, that pulse hasn't stopped. Slower now, softer. But it's still there in every thought you think, in every image behind your eyelids, in every dream waiting to be born. Imagine it, a single spark leaping between two neurons. That spark is called an action potential, a wave of electricity that travels along the thin arm of a neuron, the axon. It's not fire, it's ions, charged particles moving in and out like the tide, triggering a ripple of motion. When that ripple reaches the end, chemicals are released, and the next neuron catches the wave. This happens over and over, billions of times a second. Even now as you lie here, as you read or listen, as you drift. But you don't feel it as electricity. You feel it as a memory resurfacing, as a thought you didn't expect, as the sudden calm that settles over your chest when you remember you are safe. You are not doing this. Your brain is. And your brain is not a machine, it is a garden of signals, constantly blooming and falling, growing and learning. Even now, when you close your eyes, your occipital lobe, the part of your brain that processes vision, quiets down. It knows the eyes are closed, so it stops interpreting light. But another part, your frontal lobe, begins to drift, wandering through thoughts. It is the seat of your attention, your planning, your imagination. And imagination, that is where sleep begins. Because to imagine is to light a pathway without walking it. It is to feel without touch, to see without light. And your brain is especially good at that. It weaves these imagined strands into something gentle, something like dreaming. You do not command it to do this. It simply happens, like moonlight on water. Right now, your reticular activating system, a tiny group of neurons deep in your brainstem, is listening to the world. It listens through your ears, your skin, even your muscles. It decides what deserves your attention and what can fade. At night, it begins to filter more gently, letting the noise of the world become background hum, letting you drift. The spark slows, softens, changes tempo. Your brain has its own rhythm, waves of electrical activity that pulse through it like tides. These are your brain waves. Right now, you may still be in beta, the faster, focused waves of waking life. But soon, as you begin to sink into calm, alpha waves arrive slower, smoother, like ripples in a pond. And then deeper still, theta, then delta, the waves of sleep. Your spark is not gone. It is simply changing shape, becoming dreamlike, softening into something that doesn't need to be understood, only felt. And here's something gentle to know. Even when you sleep, the spark remains. Parts of your brain stay active through the night. Your brainstem keeps you breathing. Your hypothalamus regulates your temperature. Your amygdala, the center of emotion, still whispers in dreams. And somewhere in this quiet constellation, your consciousness rests like a lantern set gently down. You are not gone. You are simply elsewhere, resting, recharging, remembering how to be you. This is the quiet spark that lives inside you. Not a fire, not a storm. A rhythm, a pulse, a flicker of presence. It does not shout, it hums. It does not demand, it simply continues. And when you trust it, when you surrender to it, something beautiful happens. The body lets go. The breath deepens. The mind unwinds. And the lighthouse, your brain, begins to dim its beam, not to disappear, but to protect you from the glare of the day. Now you are floating in the dark, but not alone. You are surrounded by yourself, the deepest, most peaceful version of you. The version that doesn't need to think or prove or perform. Just be. This is where we begin. Because sleep is not the end of awareness, it is a return to it. And the spark, though quiet, never leaves. It just begins to drift toward movement, toward connection. There is no moonlight here, yet something glows. Within you, deeper than breath, deeper than heartbeat, there flows a current not of water, but of thought. It slips from cell to cell, a flicker, a whisper, a signal. This is how you think, how you remember, how you dream, and how, without lifting a finger, you fall asleep. Your brain is not a single light, it is a river system, a shimmering web of delicate streams, each one alive with movement. You are made of this flow, the electric drift of being. The current begins inside your neurons, slender, tree-like cells that stretch and branch, reaching out in all directions. Each one waits, listening until a message arrives. That message is not carried in words, but in waves, tiny surges of electricity, called action potentials, that travel down long arms called axons. When the wave reaches the end, the neuron speaks, releasing chemicals into the space between it and the next cell. This space is the synapse, the tiny, trembling gap between one thought and the next. Neurotransmitters cross this gap like glowing boats on a dark river. They drift, they land, they deliver, and then they vanish, absorbed or broken down, their task complete. This is not chaos. It is choreography. Each neuron knows when to fire, when to wait. The rhythm is precise, not rigid, but responsive. Like a symphony without a conductor, always in motion, always in tune. And right now, that rhythm is changing. All day, your neurons have danced quickly. Fast beta waves surged through your brain, patterns of rapid activity that help you focus, decide, move. But night brings a softer song. As your eyelids lower, your brain shifts into alpha waves, slower, smoother frequencies that signal peace. The rivers begin to meander. Neurons that once sparked with urgency now glow with ease. The sensory centers, your windows to the world, begin to dim. The visual cortex, once flooded with images, quiets. The auditory cortex softens its grip on sound. The thalamus, your brain's great relay station, gently closes its gates, choosing silence over signal. Still, the current flows. Deeper now, the hippocampus, shaped like a seahorse, sifts through memories. It replays the day, searching for meaning. What should be kept? What should be forgotten? It lays down traces of you, marking pathways that will remain long after this night has passed. This work is done without your effort. Your body lies still, but your brain is building, filing, sculpting. Each ripple of thought, each glimmering signal, a stroke in the portrait of you. And the painters? Tiny chemicals with names like poetry. GABA, the hush. It slows your neurons, quiets the storm. Glutamate, the spark. It excites, connects, ignites. Serotonin, the steadiness. It lifts mood, steadies rhythm. Dopamine, the echo. It remembers joy, traces reward. All of them flow through you now, rising and falling in delicate balance. You do not need to understand them to feel their comfort. They are part of you, silent workers, trusted companions. And as you float here, between wake and sleep, something deeper begins. Your default mode network, the part of your brain that turns inward, begins to glow. It is where your thoughts go when you are still, where the mind wanders, reflects, imagines. This too is the river, and in this river, time dissolves. A memory from years ago may float beside a thought from today. A face, a voice, a feeling, all may rise, linger, and fall away. There is no order here, only flow. You are drifting and your neurons are guiding the way. Some signals travel long distances, leaping between brain regions. Others whisper between neighbors, brief and bright. Each one a flick of light, a flash of recognition. Each one a note in the lullaby your brain plays as it rests. Beneath the surface, the brain is cleaning. Tiny glial cells sweep through, clearing waste, removing what is no longer needed. This is called glymphatic flow, a nighttime cleansing, like rivers through a forest. Protects you, renews you, prepares you for the morning, and all of it happens in silence. You may not feel it, but it is there, the soft work of the night. If you could see it, your brain would shimmer. Tiny pulses of electricity lighting up pathways like fireflies in trees. Branches touching, releasing, fading, glowing again. The forest of your mind alive in the dark. You are not controlling this. You are surrendering to it. The current knows where to go. The river knows how to carry you. And your brain, that patient lighthouse, remains aglow, not with brightness but with knowing. So you float gently through yourself. Each breath slower, each thought softer. The rivers have no need to rush, but something waits ahead. A gentle threshold, a silent turning point, a place where the current deepens, and the world of wakefulness begins to dissolve. This is not an ending, it is a passage. You are approaching the moment when your brain, like the world itself, shifts from light to shadow, not to vanish but to be renewed. Where does this shift begin? Where is the switch that dims the lights within? The answer lies just beyond this drift, in the silent care of something small, something deep, something ancient, waiting quietly to bring you into sleep. Sleep does not begin like a door slamming shut. It begins with something softer, a drawing inward, a dimming of the world outside, and a return to the quiet center of you. You are not switching off. You are crossing over. And deep in your brain, behind your thoughts, behind your feelings, there is a keeper of this crossing, a cluster of cells, hidden in the folds of your hypothalamus. It is called the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, the VLPO. But you don't need to remember its name, just its nature. Patient, watchful, wise. All day, the VLPO has been waiting. It listens to the slow cooling of your body, the rise of melatonin in your bloodstream, the fading of sunlight on your skin. It watches the signals, and when the moment is right, it whispers. Its message is carried not in voice, but in chemistry. It releases GABA, a quieting neurotransmitter, like rain on a roof. This signal moves outward, floating through the brain's highways, gently closing the gates of wakefulness. Parts of your brain that kept you alert, the arousal systems, the reticular activating center, begin to soften under GABA's touch. The thalamus, your inner gateway to sensation, starts to block the signals that come from your senses. No longer does it pass on every sound, every flicker of light. Chooses silence. And right now, that rhythm is changing. All day, your neurons have danced quickly. Fast beta waves surged through your brain, patterns of rapid activity that help you focus, decide, move. But night brings a softer song. As your eyelids lower, your brain shifts into alpha waves, slower, smoother frequencies that signal peace. The rivers begin to meander. Neurons that once sparked with urgency now glow with ease. The sensory centers, your windows to the world, begin to dim. The visual cortex, once flooded with images, quiets. The auditory cortex softens its grip on sound. The thalamus, your brain's great relay station, gently closes its gates, choosing silence over signal. Still, the current flows. Deeper now, the hippocampus shaped like a seahorse sifts through memories. It replays the day, searching for meaning. What should be kept? What should be forgotten? It lays down traces of you, marking pathways that will remain long after this night has passed. This work is done without your effort. Your body lies still, but your brain is building, filing, sculpting. Each ripple of thought, each glimmering signal, a stroke in the portrait of you. And the painters? Tiny chemicals with names like poetry. GABA the hush. It slows your neurons, quiets the storm. Glutamate the spark. It excites, connects, ignites. Serotonin the steadiness. It lifts mood, steadies rhythm. Dopamine the echo. It remembers joy, traces reward. All of them flow through you now, rising and falling in delicate balance. You do not need to understand them to feel their comfort. They are part of you, silent workers, trusted companions. And as you float here, between wake and sleep, something deeper begins. Your default mode network, the part of your brain that turns inward, begins to glow. It is where your thoughts go when you are still, where the mind wanders, reflects, imagines. This too is the river, and in this river time dissolves. A memory from years ago may float beside a thought from today. A face, a voice, a feeling, all may rise, linger, and fall away. There is no order here, only flow. You are drifting and your neurons are guiding the way. Some signals travel long distances, leaping between brain regions. Others whisper between neighbors, brief and bright. Each one a flick of light, a flash of recognition. Each one a note in the lullaby your brain plays as it rests. Beneath the surface, the brain is cleaning. Tiny glial cells sweep through, clearing waste, removing what is no longer needed. This is called glymphatic flow, a nighttime cleansing, like rivers through a forest. Protects you, renews you, prepares you for the morning, and all of it happens in silence. You may not feel it, but it is there, the soft work of the night. If you could see it, your brain would shimmer. Tiny pulses of electricity lighting up pathways like fireflies in trees. Branches touching, releasing, fading, glowing again. The forest of your mind alive in the dark. You are not controlling this. You are surrendering to it. The current knows where to go. The river knows how to carry you. And your brain, that patient lighthouse, remains aglow, not with brightness but with knowing. So you float gently through yourself, each breath slower, each thought softer. The rivers have no need to rush, but something waits ahead. A gentle threshold, a silent turning point, a place where the current deepens and the world of wakefulness begins to dissolve. This is not an ending, it is a passage. You are approaching the moment when your brain, like the world itself, shifts from light to shadow, not to vanish but to be renewed. Where does this shift begin? Where is the switch that dims the lights within? The answer lies just beyond this drift, in the silent care of something small, something deep, something ancient, waiting quietly to bring you into sleep. Sleep does not begin like a door slamming shut. It begins with something softer, a drawing inward, a dimming of the world outside, and a return to the quiet center of you. You are not switching off. You are crossing over. And deep in your brain, behind your thoughts, behind your feelings, there is a keeper of this crossing, a cluster of cells, hidden in the folds of your hypothalamus. It is called the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, the VLPO. But you don't need to remember its name, just its nature. Patient, watchful, wise. All day, the VLPO has been waiting. It listens to the slow cooling of your body, the rise of melatonin in your bloodstream, the fading of sunlight on your skin. It watches the signals. And when the moment is right, it whispers. Its message is carried not in voice, but in chemistry. It releases GABA, a quieting neurotransmitter, like rain on a roof. This signal moves outward, floating through the brain's highways, gently closing the gates of wakefulness. Parts of your brain that kept you alert, the arousal systems, the reticular activating center, begin to soften under GABA's touch. The thalamus, your inner gateway to sensation, starts to block the signals that come from your senses. No longer does it pass on every sound, every flicker of light, chooses silence. But it is the memory that feels most mysterious, that you can forget and remember and reshape without knowing. And in the night, your brain is not only sorting your experiences, it is also rehearsing possibilities. This is called dream rehearsal, where the mind runs quiet simulations, trying out different paths, different endings. In this way, your dreams are a kind of wisdom, soft experiments in the theater of your mind, practicing kindness, letting go of fear, replaying hope, even if the stories make no sense, even if they vanish by morning, they leave traces, tiny shifts in the soil of your being, and all of it is held by rhythm. Your brain waves pulse in coordinated patterns. Delta waves slow and deep mark the restoration of stage 3 sleep. Theta waves gentle and flowing arise in REM, each phase like a tide, washing in, washing out, carrying memory across the shoreline of your soul. You are not aware of this, but it is happening. You are being gently changed. And in the deep chambers of your brain, where the hippocampus glows with quiet work, your sense of self is being rewoven, not dramatically, not all at once, but thread by thread. And when you wake, you will carry this invisible stitching, a slightly stronger sense of who you are, a slightly lighter burden from what was. This is not magic. It is biology, but it is also beautiful. And tonight, as you lie in stillness, all of it continues, unfolding within you like petals in moonlight. And if the hippocampus is the memory keeper, then what happens when memory begins to blur? When dreams take the place of facts? When the brain, in its deepest sleep, lets go of reality altogether? That is where we go next, to the landscapes of REM, where dreaming begins to speak in symbols, where time melts and logic becomes a gentle mist. Inside your sleeping mind, there is a quiet gardener at work. You may think that nothing is happening as you rest, but beneath the silence, your brain becomes a garden, not one of soil or root, but of networks and cells, of signals and breath, tended softly by hands you cannot see. The thoughts you've gathered all day long, the useful, the passing, the tangled, are now sifted like blossoms in the breeze. And the keepers of this night garden, they are not your neurons, they are their caretakers, the glial cells. Glia, from the Greek word for glue, were once thought to merely hold your brain together, but now we know they do much more. They clean, they support, they guide growth, and in sleep they shine. The most active among them tonight are the microglia and astrocytes, each one tiny but tireless. The microglia move like shadowy sentinels, drifting between cells, seeking debris. They identify what is broken, what is old, and gently carry it away. Astrocytes stretch their star-like arms across your neural sky. They watch the flow of neurotransmitters, absorbing what's extra, balancing the night's chemistry with care. But this cleanup doesn't happen in daylight. It waits until sleep, because sleep opens the gates to a deeper cleansing. This is the work of the glymphatic system, a system discovered only recently, named for the glial cells it relies on. By day, your brain is busy thinking, sensing, reacting. There is little room to clean. But at night, your brain cells shrink ever so slightly, creating more space between them. Into this space flows cerebrospinal fluid, washing over your brain like gentle rain. This fluid carries away waste, proteins, toxins, leftover neurotransmitters, the residue of thought. Among them is beta amyloid, a sticky protein that, when allowed to build, has been linked to cognitive decline. But here, in the cool breath of sleep, it is swept away. This is your brain's hygiene, the soft sweeping of pathways, the pruning of unused connections, the keeping of what matters, the letting go of what no longer does. It is the garden after harvest. Some vines cut back, others nurtured to grow, and all of it done in silence. As the glial cells move, they do not wake you, they do not ask questions. They follow ancient rhythms that your body remembers, even when you do not. Sleep is not stillness. It is sacred maintenance. The gardener knows that too much clutter can cloud a thought, that even beauty must be trimmed to breathe. And while the glia clean, the neurons prepare, with space now open, the next day's learning can begin more clearly. The brain becomes more efficient, more focused, more alive. You are not aware of this. You feel only the weight of rest. But deep within, you are being renewed. Even dreams may be shaped by this pruning. What rises in the mind? A face, a fear, a memory in strange disguise. Maybe fragments caught in the act of letting go. Some float away, some take root, some bloom again in morning thought, now softer, more shaped, more whole. This garden is not chaotic. It is curated. Glial cells respond to your patterns. They know what was used, what was touched, what was left idle. They are sculptors in the dark, turning excess into clarity. And in this clarity, there is peace. You wake not only rested, but refined, less tangled, more open, and the garden, though hidden, remembers its work. It does not seek praise. It simply prepares you for memory, for focus, for life. And if you lie quietly now, you might imagine it. Tiny hands, soft brushes, petals falling from the branches of your mind, the pulse of your thoughts slowing, the inner pathways clearing, a quiet tending of the self. And as you dream, another layer of sleep prepares to rise, one filled not only with pruning, but with pictures, with stories, with symbols your waking mind cannot fully name, where meaning moves like mist, where the garden becomes a mirror, and the mirror begins to speak. The world inside you is still, but something begins to stir beneath the quiet, a flicker behind closed eyes, a movement of meaning in the dark. You are deep in sleep now, your body silent, your breath soft and slow, but your mind is awakening again, not into the day, but into the realm of dreams. Here in REM sleep, paradox unfolds. Your muscles are paralyzed, gently held still, but your brain becomes vividly active, not in the ways of logic or structure, but in waves of wild creation. This is where your dream architects rise. They are not people. They are parts of your own mind, each with a role in shaping the landscape of sleep. The prefrontal cortex, the planner, the rational guide, steps back. It dims its control, lowers its voice. Without it, time becomes fluid. Rules soften. You are freed from the boundaries of the waking world. And in that space, other regions bloom. The amygdala, keeper of emotion, glows brightly, colors the dream with feeling fear, longing, wonder. Not always in clear form, but in the tone, the pulse, the mood of the dream. The hippocampus adds memory, but not as a librarian filing records. It offers fragments, a face without a name, A street you've never walked but somehow know. These pieces come together, not to make sense, but to stir something deeper. Your parietal lobes, involved in space and perception, construct settings that shift like clouds. A room becomes a forest, a hallway becomes an ocean. You walk through the impossible, and it feels true. Meanwhile, the visual cortex lights up, not with what your eyes see, but with what your mind paints. You dream not in words, but in pictures, in motion, in sensation, and in this canvas of the unconscious, you become both the dreamer and the dreamed. A bird with no wings, a child in your old home, a voice that echoes without sound. All of it is you. All of it is real, not in the waking world, but in the inner truth of now. You may fly in your dream, not because gravity has been broken, but because doubt has stepped aside. You may meet someone long gone, not to bring them back, but to feel their presence one more time. This is the gift of the dreaming mind. It lets you rehearse without danger, feel without judgment, wander without reason, and within the dream, you rarely question. The impossible becomes ordinary. A strange logic prevails. The logic of association, not analysis. Why does the scene shift so quickly? Why do people wear other people's faces? Because your dreaming brain does not need things to make sense. It needs them to mean something, and so it weaves. It borrows emotion from one place, memory from another, imagination from yet another, and it builds, not to teach, but to integrate. Some dreams feel like riddles, others like stories. Some are soft and slow, others vivid and electric. But behind each is a network, subtle and brilliant, working without your conscious help. This is not randomness. It is creativity, unfolding in the absence of control. And sometimes, you may even become aware of it, a flicker of lucidity, where you realize in the middle of a dream, this is not real, but I am still here. In that moment, you are both asleep and awake, both architect and explorer. Not everyone experiences this, but your brain is capable. It remembers itself even as it lets go. And when the dream fades, as REM cycles ebb, as the body begins to stir again, it often vanishes like breath on glass. That is part of its design, to be felt, not always remembered, because the true work is done beneath memory. Your dreams may help you process emotion, solve quiet puzzles, prepare for tomorrow, or simply rest the parts of you that are too tired to speak. And even if you forget them, they leave traces, a feeling in the morning, a softened grief, a sudden clarity you cannot explain. Dreams shape you, silently, faithfully, night after night, and somewhere inside you, the architects sleep again, until the next cycle, the next canvas, the next rising of the inner world. But now, as REM sleep fades into stillness, you drift into deeper rest, into darker waters, into slower tides, where there are no pictures, no places, no time, only the deep, only the restoration that comes from being completely, fully gone. You are floating now, not through space, but through something stranger, a sleep where time no longer holds its shape. Moments slip from your grasp like sand. Seconds stretch into stories. Hours pass like whispers. You no longer measure time, you drift through it. And yet, even in this formless place, your body is not lost. It is held by something ancient, something rhythmic, something steady beneath the slow waves of sleep. This is your circadian rhythm, your internal clock, set not by ticking hands, but by the dance of light and darkness. From the moment you were born, your body has been listening to the world. The warmth of day, the cool hush of night, these cycles became signals, marking time not in numbers, but in feeling, and nestled deep within your brain, just above where your eyes cross paths, is a master timekeeper, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. Tiny, no larger than a grain of rice, but powerful enough to orchestrate your entire day. This nucleus reads the language of light. As morning dawns, light enters through your eyes, not just for vision, but as instruction. The SCN takes that light and tells your body, wake up. It lifts your temperature, raises cortisol, quickens your heart, and as the sun sinks low, the rhythm begins to shift. Darkness arrives, and with it, the release of a new signal, one that glows from your pineal gland, like moonlight dripping through trees. This signal is melatonin. Melatonin doesn't make you sleep, tells your body that night is here. It begins the soft transition inward, from doing to being, from alert to at ease. Think of it like twilight, not the darkness itself, but the invitation to rest. Melatonin flows through you quietly, cooling your body, whispering to your cells, let go. As this chemical tide rises, your perception begins to shift. The clarity of day fades, edges blur, time softens. You may lie still for minutes and feel as though hours have passed, or you may dream a lifetime and wake to find it's only been moments. This is not illusion. This is how your sleeping brain handles time, by letting it go. In REM sleep, where your dreams flicker most vividly, your sense of chronology dissolves. You jump between scenes, years collapse into seconds, logic loses its hold. Even your brain's timekeepers rest. The prefrontal cortex, so responsible in waking life, steps back, and in its absence, you're free to wander through landscapes that move like breath. Outside this dreaming world, your circadian rhythm continues its quiet work. Even in deep sleep, your SCN keeps track of night. It ensures your systems flow in harmony. Temperature, hormone levels, alertness. Every cell in your body has its own little clock, ticking in time with the master one. And together, they keep you anchored in a world that has rhythm, even if you can't feel it right now. You are like the tide, pulled by invisible moons. Even as time bends in sleep, your body remembers what time it usually sleeps, what time it needs to rise, when to repair, when to renew. This internal clock is not perfect. It needs cues: sunlight, routine, silence. It listens to your habits. And when those habits are gentle, your rhythm flows like music. But if your rhythm is disrupted by bright light late at night, by too little rest, by irregular sleep, the body becomes confused. Melatonin stutters. The rhythm skips. You may feel tired but wired, awake in the dark, sleepy in the day. This is circadian misalignment, and it feels like jet lag without traveling, because your body's clock is still trying to keep time in a world that no longer makes sense. But for now, you are in rhythm. The melatonin moves like dust-colored ink through your blood. The SCN watches, steady and kind. Your cells are aligned in their quiet symphony. And while you drift through this place, where time stretches and bends, your body stays anchored by that pulse beneath all pulses. You are not drifting aimlessly. You are orbiting your own center. It is this rhythm, this clock beneath all clocks, that lets your sleep be deep, your dreams be wild, your waking be whole. And as the hours pass, though you may not feel them, you are being guided home. Slowly, the melatonin will begin to fade. Your core temperature will rise. Your cortisol will gently return, like sunrise behind your closed eyes. You will wake not because an alarm rings, but because your body remembers that the earth is turning again. But not yet. Now, you are still in the space where time floats, where the world outside sleeps too, and the only clock that matters is the one ticking in your bones. And beyond even this rhythm, beneath the cycles of light and night, there is something deeper, a current that flows through every creature, every life, a shared inheritance, a cellular knowing, a rhythm that began long before you were born. You are very still now, not just in body but in thought. The day has fallen away, and the voices in your mind, once so loud, have grown quiet. No lists, no decisions, no what-ifs or should-haves, just a soft, open space within you. And yet, your brain has not gone dark. It is humming gently, a low, thoughtful rhythm, not of action, but of being. This is where the default mode network, your silent companion, begins to soften its glow. The default mode network, the DMN, is not a place. It is a collection of connections, a quiet circuit running through your brain's midline, connecting the inner parts of you. By day, it is the voice that narrates your world. It strings thoughts together like beads, tells the story of who you are. I am here, I am thinking, I am me. It is where your mind goes when it is not doing anything else. When you stare at a wall, or walk alone, or float in a daydream, that is the DMN at work. It helps you reflect. It recalls your past. It imagines your future. It creates the sense of self that quietly carries you through time. But now, in the deep of sleep, this inner narrator dims. His words fade to breath. The stories dissolve into fragments. Your sense of self becomes lighter, not gone, but looser. The DMN does not vanish. It simply lets go of control. What remains is not silence, but a gentler signal, the hum beneath the noise. In this hum, memories are still active, feelings still stir, but they are no longer tangled into you. They float freely and softly, like leaves on a stream. And something beautiful happens here. Without the constant voice narrating your world, you begin to feel a deeper kind of presence. Not the doing of self, but the being beneath it. Your brain begins to wander inward, not to solve, not to speak, but to listen. There is an unfolding, a gentle untangling. Not everything needs to be understood right now. Thoughts stretch and settle. Emotions settle into their shapes. The raw material of your waking mind is given space to breathe. And while your default mode network rests, another kind of awareness may arise. Not the voice in your head, but the ocean beneath it, the background consciousness, the part of you that simply knows, without needing to name. This is not mystical. It is your biology, in a state of grace. In this stillness, brain activity slows and deepens. Slow-wave sleep continues its quiet work, cleaning, repairing, restoring. But more than that, your mind is learning how to rest. Not just your body, not just your muscles, but your very sense of identity. You are being reminded that you are not only your thoughts, you are not only your memories, your worries, your goals. You are also this space between, this breath, this silence, this deep, wide awareness that remains when everything else fades. The DMN will return. As you wake, it will slowly rise again, gathering thoughts, rebuilding your story. It will help you remember who you are, where you are, what the day holds. But for now, it rests, and you are free from the constant hum, free to float in this stillness, to simply be. Even dreams now have grown thinner. You may be between cycles, Between images, there may be only sensations, a warmth, a shadow, a drifting presence, and this too is part of the rhythm. Not every moment must be filled. There is wisdom in pause, in the blank spaces between thoughts. The brain knows this, and so it lets you drift. Nothing to chase, nothing to resist, only this soft return to the center of yourself. Beneath the noise, you are whole. Beneath the noise, you are safe. You are held by silence. That is not empty, but full of rest. And as your body lies in its rhythm, and your mind sleeps without needing to speak, something deeper stirs in the quiet, a memory not of thought, but of being part of something older, something shared, something living and flowing through all who sleep, not just the you of today, but the ones who came before, who rested beneath stars, who dreamed beside fires, who heard the same quiet and called it sacred. Deep in the quiet folds of your brain, beneath the swirl of dreams and the hush of memory, there lives a sentinel, a lightkeeper that never fully sleeps. This is your thalamus, not made of bricks or flame, but of gentle nerve pathways and electrical rhythm. It does not cast light, but it filters it, shaping your experience of the world, even when your eyes are closed. During the day, the thalamus is like the great switchboard of your brain. Everything you sense, a voice, a smell, a distant hum, must pass through this gate. It decides what reaches your awareness and what quietly dissolves into the background. This is not cold filtering. It is wisdom in action. Protects you from too much, from the overwhelm of every sound, every flicker, every possible signal. It lets you stay focused without being flooded. And now, as you lie in the softness of sleep, this lighthouse shifts its rhythm. But it does not go dark. Even now, it remains watchful, not for language or light or thought, but for something quieter, safety. Your thalamus helps protect your sleep. It listens at the edge of silence. It lets the world go dim, but it stays ready in case the world must come rushing back in. A sudden sound, a shift in light, a movement in the room. The thalamus receives it, and only if it matters, only if the signal is sharp enough, does it let it wake you. You felt this before. A dog bark in the distance doesn't stir you, but the creak of a door in your own home? You rise. That's your thalamus, standing watch with quiet loyalty. It is your inner lighthouse, spinning slowly, filtering the noise, protecting the stillness inside. But this lightkeeper does more than guard. It helps shape your dreams too. The thalamus works with your cortex to create the sounds and images you see when you sleep. It doesn't just receive sensory input, it also simulates it. In your dreams, you may hear a voice, feel warmth, see a sky filled with colors that do not exist. And yet none of that is coming from the world outside. It's coming from within. The thalamus helps paint this inner landscape, delivering signals to the cortex that mimic waking perception. And because your prefrontal cortex is still resting, you believe it. You believe the room has become a forest, that a lost loved one is standing at your door, that you are floating through stars made of breath. The lighthouse sends its beams inward now, and your mind becomes the sea. And when your body enters slow wave sleep, that deep restorative place, the thalamus slows even more. Its gate closes. Your awareness narrows to almost nothing, and you drift into a sleep so deep that even dreaming pauses. Here you are at your most protected. The lighthouse has lowered its beam, so you can vanish without fear. This deep stage is when your body repairs, when tissues grow, when your immune system strengthens, your muscles rest, your heart slows, and through it all, the thalamus hums faintly, present, faithful, ready. You may not remember it, you may not sense it, but something inside you is holding vigil, and this watching doesn't end at sleep's edge. As you begin to wake, as the early light returns, as melatonin fades, your thalamus awakens with you. It opens the gate, gently at first. A sound becomes clearer, a shadow takes shape. You become aware of your sheets, your breath, the soft light behind your eyelids. You do not leap into the world. You re-enter it, slowly, guided by the thalamus and the pathways it relights. You begin to think again, to remember who you are, to name the day. The lighthouse opens its beam, and once again, the sea of your senses begins to rise. But here's the quiet wonder. Even during the day, this gatekeeper does not fully open. It still filters, still protects, still guides your attention toward what matters most. And what matters most is often not what is loudest, but what is most meaningful. The sound of your name, the voice of someone you love, the quiet feeling that something is wrong or something is right. The thalamus does not just process sound or light. It weighs importance. It helps you sense not only the world, but your place in it. And this ability to sort signal from noise, to let the softest light shine through, is a kind of wisdom. It's the same wisdom that lets you fall asleep in safety and rise again into the world, whole and ready. You are the keeper of this lighthouse. It is part of you, but also something deeper, something that has guided generations before you, through both waking and dreaming. And now, as your brain cycles again, from REM into stillness, from story into breath, the beam begins to soften. You do not need to think. You only need to rest, because even here, in this moment between dreams and dark, your light still turns, quiet and constant, waiting for the next glimmer on the horizon. And somewhere ahead, beyond the rhythm of your breath, another question begins to rise like morning. What is consciousness? When you are neither fully awake nor fully gone, you are still, but something within you begins to shift, so softly you do not yet notice. A whisper under your skin, a gentle signal rising from the dark. The night has held you, cradled you in its tide, and now it begins to loosen its arms. Your body, tuned to rhythms older than memory, knows the turn is near, not the end, but the slow return. The sea that carried you outward now draws you inward again. This is the pull of waking, and it begins with light that isn't light. You do not yet open your eyes, but inside you the first waves of cortisol begin to rise. This hormone is not your enemy. It is not stress itself. Not here, not now. It is a sunbeam made of chemistry, a signal of morning. It lifts you gently from the deep. Cortisol flows like light under the door, calling your systems awake, but not rushing them. Your temperature begins to rise. Your blood pressure rises too, but not sharply, only just enough to remind your body that the world will soon return. And still, your eyes stay closed. Your breath remains slow. The journey back is not a leap. It is a float. Your prefrontal cortex, long resting in the shadows, begins to stir. You do not notice thought returning, but you begin to remember, not in sharp pictures, but in soft familiarity. Your name, the shape of the room, the scent of something known. You are becoming you again, not a dreamer, not an ocean, but a self. There is no line where sleep ends and waking begins. It is all gradient, all transition. Your circadian rhythm, faithful through the night, now moves you into day. Melatonin, your sleep dark ink, fades from your bloodstream. This work is done, and in its place, clarity begins to bloom, not all at once, not with urgency, but like dawn through trees, soft, kind. Your thalamus opens its gate. More of the world begins to flow in. The weight of the blanket, the hush of the early air, the possibility of a sound, distant, near, not quite here yet. You do not need to move. Your body will wait until your mind is fully home. The dreams begin to fade, some slipping through your fingers like mist, others lingering at the edge, half remembered, like a song you almost know. They do not need to stay. Their work is done. Behind them, your mind feels clearer, though you have not yet begun to think. There is still time here. Pause before movement, a breath before day. This is your hypnopompic state, the gentle phase between sleep and waking. It is the twin of falling asleep, but reversed, not a descent, but an ascent. Some call it grogginess, but here, in its quietest version, it is something more sacred, a final float, before the tide returns you to shore. Your heart knows this rhythm. It does not race, pulses, steady, present. You may stretch soon, or blink, or roll gently to one side, but right now, you are still inside the in-between, held. Your brain has done so much, sorted memory, cleansed itself, dreamed, restored, repaired. And now it prepares, not for battle, but for living. You are not a machine restarting. You are a being returning. And this return, like all returns, comes with gifts, quieter mind, a steadier breath, a renewed chance to begin again. Even if the day ahead holds challenge, you have rested in the deep. You have been kept by the lighthouse inside you, watched over by ancient rhythms, renewed in silence. And though you may not remember where your mind wandered, you carry the softness of that journey in the way you open your eyes, the way you sit up, the way you exhale. Sleep has not removed you from life. It has prepared you for it. You do not need to leap. You only need to arrive, one cell at a time, one breath at a time. And even as you rise, you remain part of the rhythm. The world outside pulses too, light changing, air moving, time flowing again. But here, before the full return, let yourself linger one last moment, in the warmth of sheets, in the hush before sound, in the stillness that reminds you, you were never lost. You were simply resting. And now, as your feet prepare to find the floor, and your day begins to stir, a quiet question forms, not with words, but with a feeling. Where will this new waking carry you? And now it prepares, not for battle, but for living. You are not a machine restarting. You are a being returning. And this return, like all returns, comes with gifts, quieter mind, a steadier breath, a renewed chance to begin again. Even if the day ahead holds challenge, you have rested in the deep. You have been kept by the lighthouse inside you, watched over by ancient rhythms, renewed in silence. And though you may not remember where your mind wandered, you carry the softness of that journey. In the way you open your eyes, the way you sit up, the way you exhale, sleep has not removed you from life. It has prepared you for it. You do not need to leap. You only need to arrive. One cell at a time, one breath at a time. And even as you rise, you remain part of the rhythm. The world outside pulses too. Light changing, air moving, time flowing again. But here, before the full return, let yourself linger one last moment. In the warmth of sheets, in the hush before sound, in the stillness that reminds you, you were never lost. You were simply resting. And now, as your feet prepare to find the floor, and your day begins to stir, a quiet question forms, not with words, but with a feeling. Where will this new waking carry you?